super like she's like I haven't lived my life to the fullest yet.
That's inspiring, actually.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring.
Yeah. 好嘢啊佢 I just like
好嘢嘅意思。
你能夠用好嘢證明你唔係好嘢。
好嘢嘅意思係咩先？因為我唔係好識喎。
Describe it like.
That was a very cool, charismatic, respectful.
呢個係 old school 定係 trendy 嘅？
都幾 old school。
It's old school Cantonese, but for me it's
咁即
like
係我都幾 in 喎，因為我音喎。
Try to like justify it. From a career path
Wow,
perspective.
career path.
You mentioned obviously almost a decade ago you were doing the MBA. So how did you kind of get to that point, and what have you been doing since then?
Sure. So I actually started out my career in hospitality. I did in-house recruitment for a hotel in the US. Did that for 3 years, but I always knew that I wanted to come back to Hong Kong. Hong Kong just has this sort of allure, so I just wanted to come back, and I thought the best way to do it was through an MBA, to start fresh, to meet more people, to network, and so came back for that, went to UST. And then a year after that, I got a role at a bank. That's how I met Wing. Started working in the bank really as an intern for an HR department, did some work for them, was able to stay, and then went into work for the CEO office, and that was where I think when you mentioned that freshness, that constant challenge was so important for me, because I did 4 years in this role, was as a business manager for the CEO office, and every day was something new, and every day was something different, and every project was completely different, so that my learning curve was super steep. So I could walk into the office one day and all of a sudden a project landed on my desk, and I have completely no idea about the market that we're going into or the type of products we're doing, yet you're expected to ramp up very, very quickly. And that's where I learned the importance of asking questions, and the importance of really being okay with knowing that you don't know everything, and being able to be humble and willing to learn, so that you ask the right people, and people are oftentimes incredibly good about sharing their experience and their expertise with you, and that's how I learned along the way, and that really shortens your learning cycle, actually. And so did that for a few years, and then a friend of mine came and asked me whether or not I wanted to join LinkedIn. And at the time, and this comes back to your question earlier, which is if I don't have that experience, am I qualified for the job? And he comes to me and he goes, now I'm leading the sales team here in Hong Kong. Would you like to join? And I said to him, and he's an MBA classmate of mine, and I said to him, I have no sales experience. I've never been in sales. I don't know how to do sales. I don't know how to close contracts. Are you sure? Because I'm not sure. Because I'm really not sure. And he says, just come. You have the right skill sets, which is more consultative, more strategic conversations.
like people skills,
and just come and just join. And I said, fine. Took a leap. I struggled the first year. It was one of those struggles that really made me go,
What's wrong with me?
existential crisis.
Why am I not delivering?
Exactly. And I went through a year of that, and obviously now in a much better place, but it was a big struggle, and part of it is having someone to take a leap of faith on you, and part of it is being obviously brave enough to say, I may not have these skills, but I'm going to try anyways, and I'm going to try really hard to ramp up. And I think so far in that career journey, what I've learned is, number one, don't be afraid of what you don't know, whether that be in a project setting or taking on a new job. If somebody sees something in you and go, hey, I think you'll be right for the job, obviously they know something that you don't know. And so really assess, is that what I want to do, and then just go. And I think that to me has been quite important.
Would you say like through that process, was there an evolution of how you perceive who you seek out to be your mentors or your supporters?
Yeah.
Because I know at the start, I was very shy about seeking out actively, like, can you be my mentor? Like that sort of thing. But do you think that kind of changed throughout your...
I never really officially asked anyone to be a mentor, but I consider all of my bosses my mentors. And what I've realized is that throughout my career journey, I've learned something very valuable from each and every one of my managers. And at each step of the way, it was exactly what I needed to know, whether that be my very first job at the Hilton, which is learning confidence. I remember my very first job, we have an open door policy with my boss, and my boss always had her door open. And I would knock on her door because I needed something from her, but as I was knocking, I didn't even realize, but I was backing away. So I would slowly move back. I didn't even realize that. And then my boss came up to me and goes, "What is wrong with you?"
What do you want?
Am I that scary? Or, and then
Was she?
No, she was. She is one of the best bosses I've ever had. And
this is your first proper job setting. That's why you were
proper first job setting.
Yeah.
But she taught me confidence, and she always told me, "You have to be loud and proud. You have to be loud and proud," and that was that advice that she gave me that I took throughout my journey, because confidence is it will help you a lot in your job.
Very important first lesson, I guess.
Yeah. So, she was my very first lesson, my very first boss, and taught me confidence and what it means to speak with confidence. And then my second job, my third job, and along the way, each boss had their own qualities. And I learned from them, whether that be what is quality of work, and then, or what is relationship building. And so all the way up until, today, I'm still learning a lot. And so I see as all of my managers as my mentors, not necessarily going, "Hi, you have a mentor hat," but really just having really open discussions with them and going, what do I need? How can I be better? And they're very open to sharing that with me. So very lucky. All of my bosses have been great.
I think that's a great point here about confidence. I think different people build confidence in different ways. So sometimes an external word of encouragement is incredibly, I think, important. Some people more build it up internally. They feel like, I need to contribute to the goal, and then that's how I build confidence. But regardless of which way, I think just having that as an end goal is important. Because sometimes you don't think about it like that. What is the purpose of this? And sometimes it is just so you understand the situation. So next time when you do it, you do it better and you with more confidence. So you were gonna say? I thought you were gonna ask a question.
He's probably thinking, how can I contribute?
Contribution.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I guess
I was gonna say no, yeah. Awkward.
We know what's coming on your head.
What about your kind of career journey?
I first started off in a finance role in an FCMG. When at that time, because I did internship in a bank, but I didn't end up landing on a job in a bank. So I was just like, this is really for me for a long time. But then I realized it's a first job, but there's so much that I could learn from that role, which I did, fortunately, because I had some really good people, like a boss. Yeah. I learned so much, and then what we mentioned before, relationship building, because finance is a role that supports a lot of different other teams as well, so you have to reach out to different teams and talk to people, get some financial information about them, and that's the relationship building part. And I learned how to use Excel.
That's important.
That's
It
an
is.
important.
No, I guess I
Yeah.
know.
Basic
Very
skill.
important skill.
Yeah. Like
It's a language. It's like a language.
Yeah.
So you
It
need to learn.
is. It's
Yeah.
a valuable skill. It's a skill that I don't have. That Wing had. That's why I love him so much.
yeah, especially when big data is so important. You need to process a lot of data on a day-to-day basis, especially like in the finance role. So like learning how to use the pivot table, for example, is like it was like eye-opening for me because I thought like you have to like punch in every number.
Yeah. Especially the formula function, right?
Yeah.
The formula function.
Yeah. So like that was like some like hard skills that I learned as well. And then I spent like 2 years there, and then at a point when I started to think whether I wanted to continue on or move on to something else, because at that point I still kind of wanted to go back to banking. So I did my CFA.
The qualification.
Yeah.
Right,
I did
yeah.
like the first level, and then after I passed that, I started to apply to like bank jobs, and then I would work for 2 banks before doing my MBA, middle/back office role. It was quite different. I think what I learned from those experiences are you really need to know what you want as like your career goal, and how you build around that to reach your goal. I think a lot of people don't really have that in mind, and you need to know like where you want to go and how you get there. I think, to be honest, at that point I don't really have that in mind as well. I just wanted a bad job, right? So was I very happy working there? No, not really, because I'm still like a little lost. So like this at the second bank job before MBA, before I decided to apply for MBA, I was just like, oh man, this is like killing me. I'm working like 7 days a week. It's not going anywhere. I'm not happy. Office politics. So it's just like, yeah, I might want to like take a break. So I did an MBA, which was actually very useful in my career, because in MBA I met a lot of different people with different backgrounds, and kind of helped me find what I ultimately wanted in life and career. Yeah, and so right after MBA I decided to start helping out in my family office. Yeah, and I've been doing that since MBA for some years now. And it's very different experience from my pre-MBA career, because I really need to set objectives for myself. It's not as structured as a big organization. It's difficult in a different way, because there's a lot of pressure and burden from you don't want to like sort of like lose the legacy of the family. You have the pressure to how to conserve the business, how to sustain it. But yeah, I think I've learned enough, or I've seen enough people with different career background for me to help set these objectives now. Yeah, and how, and there's also like a point where I need to like, just sort of like emerge to become a future leader of the office. That's actually also very sort of like a change in mindset for me, because as you're working in a big organization, you always consider yourself as an employee, and you're trying to like fulfill the daily tasks, and very little that you want to seek personal growth. But at this post now, I have the flexibility to help shape what I want to be as like as a leader. So it's I think it's fun, interesting, but also a little bit challenging. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but then like how to switch the mindset from being like an employee to a leader, and like it doesn't have to be like a CEO leader, but like instead of like just following orders.
Yeah, you have more responsibility,
Yeah,
right?
there are like more things you need to manage up, manage down.
Yeah.
How did you like work around that and like, you know, make that transition?
Yeah, I think that's interesting, the story, and before I answer your question, because it is a big shift being from, I mean, I think you can call it employee, employer kind of the role. It's definitely a challenge, but the biggest thing, I think, if I had to narrow it down to one thing, is accountability. So in an organization or within a group, when you're the employee, there's some ways where you can always delegate the accountability to or share the accountability amongst you know, peers or even your seniors, right? Because you always hear this phrase, that's what they get paid to do. You know, that's what their paycheck kind of you know, directs them to do. But when you go from like, you own the whole thing, there's no one, you don't complain about that because the people complain about you. You don't complain, you know, like there's no you are accountable. Like if something fails, like it's because of you. Like you can't like just shove that onto someone else. So I think the first thing is your perception of failure. Like I think it goes back to confidence as well. It's like when you're, the thing especially in, you know, the roles that we may have done, like perfection or the perception of perfection is quite important in your job, because like you're doing a spreadsheet, you have to make it work, right? It's not gonna, if it doesn't balance, it doesn't work. So when you have that mindset, you cannot become a leader or an entrepreneur because you are gonna make mistakes. Like there's no way you're not gonna make mistakes. So I think the first thing is like the confidence, just to look at the mistake and just say, okay, that was wrong because of 1 and 2. Let's just not do that again, or let's mitigate that next time. Like honestly, every day you're gonna have to make decisions, so you can't let 1 or 2 or even 3 mistakes like throw you off and not make the 4th decision. Just because if you don't do something that day, your company is not going to move forward. I think that's the mindset you have to have, whatever scale it is. Obviously, at a smaller scale, it's actually true because you only have 5 people or 10 people. I think even if it's hundreds of people, like the leader cannot stop. I think that's the biggest challenge, and that's why they have to love what they do and do it in a way that you know that suits them, because otherwise it just cannot be sustainability. And the second part, again, I totally agree, is like it is a really good realization. I wish I knew this earlier, but if you have it doesn't have to be a very clear, but if you have a direction in terms of where your end goal is, like I know I want to run my own ventures, whatever that might be. You work backwards and you build like the foundation one step at a time. So it's like, why are you learning? Why are you so keen on learning how to do spreadsheets? Or why do you care so much about going to learn Mandarin? Because I was like, without those skills, how can I manage someone with those skills? Like I always knew it was going to be like that. So whenever I had a chance to pick up something that I felt was possible, like honestly, if I went and learned Latin, then yeah, I don't think I could do that. But you know, the example.
Oh,
there,
I know Latin.
Yeah. So,
okay, yeah.
so
not my choice.
next episode you can open in Latin and challenge yourself. But yeah, I think it's the process. You're gonna love the process, right? Like I hear, like I take inspiration from like maybe sports and things like that. People love the process. They like doing drills, they like training, because that's how they become good. And I think that's transferable across, I think, everything. It just might not be so visible or so immediately rewarding, like you know, like in sports or something. But I think with career, it's you're gonna get, it's a longer term validation, but you need to put the work in. So that would be my I think what I wish I knew earlier in my if I had to do something different. Be more certain about that I'm going to go to my end goal, because now I say it with certainty, but before it was like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I gotta get a bigger paycheck here, so let's do that. I have made decisions like that, but it's okay, because ultimately I you know, I'm on the right side now, so that's important.
I want to maybe, you know, pick your brains a little bit, both of you guys, because you know, obviously you guys are a lot of more experience and definitely know what you want to do. I think for the majority of the working population, we actually don't know what we want to do.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to
And
ask.
you know, you don't have an end goal, not because you don't want an end goal, but because you haven't figured it out yet. So how did both of you figure out this is exactly what I want to do, and this is what I want to get into, and what is that process kind of was like for you guys?
But for me, it was a bit of I think it was push and pull. The push was that it was just every day was just painful. Like to the like honestly, if you are feeling like you don't know what you do, I think that means something that you're doing now is comforting, or like for me, it was just got to the point where I was like, even if I achieved all the accomplishments, like get good feedback, bonus, whatever, it still wasn't. The happiness was like a day, and then the next day I'm like, I'm still not. It's like I can't explain it, but it's like I'm not doing anything, but I'm doing a lot. So
it's a satisfaction thing.
Yeah, I think it's you know it internally, and then it went through like maybe 5 or 6 variations of this, like keep going back and forth. I tried to change jobs, I tried to go to different countries. It still wasn't there, so I was like, okay, let's just do it. Like it's really weird, but when I was really young, like maybe like 14, 15, I always like knew almost that I would be an entrepreneur, or I wanted to be. Because it's really weird, but I used to, I mean this is really stupid if I say it out loud, but it's like I used to read like a lot of, I actually used to read and write online novels, like Chinese, with a bunch of Taiwanese guys, and this was way back in like 2000, so this was like, I would say it's ahead of its time, but
Did you say read or write?
Read, mostly read, but I write as well. It's like a forum, and then people post their novels on, and then you can comment. So I was more like commenting on
Maybe we
other
should
people.
pull that back up.
Yeah,
Read
I don't
some
know.
of Wing's
I think it's the site is not there anymore. But I think then there was a lot of entrepreneurship, I guess, because we were actually wanting to build that as a business. Like even though it was a bunch of I was in the UK, there were people from New Zealand, most of them were from Taiwan and Hong Kong. And it was just a group of people meeting online, and that was the first version of like having a digital business. It wasn't me, it was
forward thinking.
It was someone else, and there was one person who wrote a novel that I really liked, and it was a business story. And then I realized I used to speak to him all the time in the chat rooms, and he did an MBA. He was doing an MBA in Melbourne, I think.
Okay.
And then he was like, "Oh, I just finished my MBA before I'm gonna work for I think Microsoft." And then between that time, he was just writing novels and trying to get this digital business going. I had no idea like what any of that meant, but it was just like, okay, this sounds pretty cool, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and like, I even chose my subjects that were like aligned to try to do that. And then obviously I went to uni and I forgot about it for a while because you get involved in other things. And then when you look for a job, probably still the first job, probably still no, I didn't really think about it. But then 2 years in the job, I was like, okay, this is coming back to me now, because I was looking at M&A, so I looked at a lot of businesses and stuff. So it kind of started building from there. So then ever since then, I always made a career decision, maybe like at the start, maybe like 20% I factor in the importance of my end goal. And then I think like the MBA was probably like 50, I would say. And then I should have, to be honest, like, I thought I would come out of the MBA doing entrepreneurship, but again, you get swayed, and then I think when I made the last decision, it was 100%. So it kind of was like a evolution. I can't really explain why it appealed to me. It's just something that keeps coming up. If you don't really think about it, something like actively, and it keeps coming up, then that's probably quite important to you. So that's something that
it's a calling.
No, that's I think it's somewhat like that. But how about you?
For me, I knew I would be working in the family office ultimately, because it's just been like generation after generation, and I know like that is something that I would have to do, which I've been trying to postpone it as much as I can. But yeah, like because both my father and my mother's sides of the families, they're both business owners. And they were entrepreneurs like generations before. So and my grandfathers, both of them are like somebody I look up to. So that's like kind of like an inspiration for me all along to hopefully be able to fill in their shoes one day. I'm still not saying it in a very confident way, but like that's like ultimately what I wanted to do, I know.
Did you ever like, was the vision ever to kind of recreate what they did, like as in terms of being like a first generation, the person who started?
so yeah, like all along, I would just imagine myself to be working in the family office. But then as I started working there, I realized like part of the objective for me is to sustain the business. And you know that you cannot recreate what they have been doing or just like doing what they have been doing to sustain, because things have changed so much around the world. And some of the older business models just don't make sense anymore. And I know the company history, they have been changing their business models along the way, or what they have been doing. So like I know eventually I would need to branch out and change what they have been doing in order to sustain it.
I'm very curious. What has been the best advice that your grandfather and your father has given you?
I think it's something, there are actually a lot of good advices. A lot of good advices I still remember.
A few moments later.
Reminiscing now,
Yeah.
Dig it out.
I'm trying to like put
now it's we're anticipating this.
I think a lot of them are just like, a lot of them are common sense. But then if you hear it from somebody, you have like blood relation to it, means so much more to you. Be humble is one of them. Like as you said before, like you need to realize that you don't know everything. You need to be comfortable enough to open up and ask what is going on around the world. Like sometimes when you're so focused on doing or building your own business, you realize that you sort of like lose sight of what's happening. And it's so important nowadays, especially because the world is just changing too quickly, and you don't know what's the most up-to-date things that you need to pay attention to, or you would be interested in having some exposure of the company in that area. So yeah, be humble, like be able to ask questions, just treat people nicely, because what comes around, like, oh shit, what was that phrase again?
What goes around
Goes
comes
around.
around.
What goes around comes around. Yeah, like even people serving you, just be nice to them, because you know, like in a restaurant, you know, they might, you know, spit in your food, right?
Or like pee in your cup, like.
Yeah, exactly. No, but like it's just like treat people how you want to be treated. Respect people, you know, like these are some like values that I really try to hold on to, like coming from like the advice from them. Also like just try to be flexible and try to stay curious. Yeah.
Stay curious. I think curiosity is very important.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I think it ties to like, you know, you don't know everything.
Especially if you're in a leadership role, because number one, by definition, you have to be curious about the people who are working with you, working for you. You know, and people can sense that if you don't. I mean, if you care about them, you in a way, being curious about them is the first kind of. It's just one of the key things, right? So I think that's really important. And the respect thing as well. Just going back to the first section when we talk about networking and stuff. That's where it comes in, because you never know whether it's like over a family dinner maybe 16 years ago that you made a good impression on some uncle who's now referring you to a job. It happens, right? I mean, it happens because you talk to people. Now you look at the newer generation, you're like, people say that, and it's not very nice, but people do say that, even in that setting. So I think whether it's family or everyday interaction, and that's where life experience is important, because like if you've served someone before, you would understand why you need to be polite to them, because dude, they're standing there for hours and it's tiring, right? So why don't you just give them that one? It made me feel good when someone was like polite. So it kind of becomes natural. And I'm like, okay, let's just do that. And the fact that I don't want them to spit my food.
No, but exactly. Because you have gone through.
I think that's why
they've been
empathy and life experience is always important.
Exactly.
And you can only empathize with the people if you've been through something similar. So
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So very long answer to your question. I don't know, to be honest. If I get that question a lot now, because I obviously made a transformation. So I know the people who are asking me that question has that something in their mind about maybe changing what they're doing now, but then at the same time trying to rationalize it because most of them are in jobs that are pretty accomplished and socially recognized and good, right? Just good jobs. So they're like, why am I not? Why am I feeling this way? So, and it's hard because I don't know the answer. Like I think I just give them my version and hopefully they can take whatever kind of parts out of it that helps them.
And you need to let yourself be inspired. You need to let yourself be inspired because a lot of, again, it's like every day is so hectic. Sometimes you just need to breathe there for yourself and see. Sometimes writing it down helps too. Because like these thoughts just come and go in your mind. And it's like something that really as you said, like comes back to you. You should write it down and maybe start planning. Something concrete in black and white would help.
Because goals, you're motivated by goals. Because when I was an employee, there was part of the motivation was fear. Because like the boss is gonna tell me off, right? So then you do get motivated because you're like, okay, that's the basis. That's the basis of FaceTime, right? Because you're like, okay, you have to connect with this person and somewhat I have to do what they perceive to be doing something. Whereas now I'm like, well, I could not go to work for however many days, but then if I don't reach my goals, that's not the purpose of what I'm doing, right? So then you have to keep motivating yourself whichever way. So I think having clear goals. Like sometimes I get motivated by anger, so I get angry about something. So then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like prove someone wrong.
Yes.
Or, but you cannot do it too much. You cannot do it too much because you drive yourself to the ground. But you do a little bit of that, and then
that's a admirable like characteristics.
I think you have to like it's whatever drives you. I think that's the biggest difference because you have to design your own motivation system. Whereas at work they have somewhat of a motivation system for you, whether it's like a bonus, job security,
and you have like performance review,
just social social status. I don't know.
Social pressure.
Yeah, like social pressure. So it's a solitary road.
It's not channeling all of the emotions, good and bad.
Yeah, exactly. Just making use of it. So that would be.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that we have so much more to share.
That was a good question. The guest.
The table has turned again.
The table has maybe you can host our next session as well.
I'll be happy to. A new career goal for myself.
Yeah.
Influencer.
Side hustle.
Yes, so did you think that was helpful for?
Oh
sense of
definitely.
Direction or.
Because I think a lot of me as well, but most of my other friends, like our conversations nowadays are more like, first like find a job first, and then like we'll figure out the rest later. But also like, I think we also have that pressure just because we spend a lot of time on YouTube, right? Watching other YouTubers like who are actually making a career out of YouTube or just their own thing. And I think that put a lot of pressure on just everyone else. Like just especially my age group, to find their own passion, whether or not that's on YouTube. And I think a lot of people lose their self-confidence. Like they think it's a bad thing to not have a passion. But I think just as you guys have mentioned, like it's part of the journey, right? You're handling a lot of things at once. You're learning how to be like a good employee, how to just readjust your EQ to the workplace, meet, like there are different types of mentors, like know that, your mentors are human too, whether you like them or not. I think, and like at the same time, just like planning, like having goals, but also not plan too much ahead, because like I think a lot of the times we get disappointed by if something doesn't work our own way or what we expected it to do.
That's good.
It's very helpful. Thank you. And so that's it for today. Hopefully you guys also found this very helpful for you, whether or not you're just coming out of university or you've been working like for decades. It's never too late. There's quarter life crisis or mid life crisis. There's even, I don't know, post mid.
Three-quarter life.
Senior life crisis. Yeah. So yes, if you haven't already, subscribe and follow our Instagram at Waffles and Jams. And I hope you have a nice weekend.